Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome episode of Vibin It. I don't usually introduce the show. It's Lindsay here, and Kelsey has terrible internet, so I'm the one that's doing
terrible.
Today.
The worst.
But this is a really good one, and we are so excited. It's been a long time coming. Part 2, I guess you could say, of the lovely Alea here today.
She's back.
I think that's what you call yourself, so I just thought I'd jump on it. Hi, it's so good to see you back. If you guys remember, we had her on, I don't even know when, like a year ago at least. So much has changed with all of us, and I just can't wait to dive in. There's some great themes going on right now. I got an idea that this is going to be awesome. So welcome again to the show. How have you been doing? Tell us everything.
What do they say? I'm blessed.
Blessed, not stressed.
We're trying not
blessed
to be
and stressed.
Yeah, it's both.
That's how I feel.
The world seems to be crumbling and at the same time coming together. So we're doing our best with perspective in this household right now.
Good word.
Wow. Well,
one of my favorites.
Yeah, perspective, right? Oh my gosh,
game.
Wasn't that
Cue the drinking game?
That was the drinking game. And then it became how quickly in the episode Kelsey would drop an F-bomb. That's what the game became after that. But so far so good. So I know that before we started the show, we were talking a little bit about what you wanted to touch on today. But first, why don't we catch up with you? What have you been up to? What's been going on? And all of it.
Well, lately I have been in this really interesting space where I'm trying really hard to learn how not to play small and to really tap into what it is that's been calling my heart for a really long time. And so I've decided that I'm going to be more open with my channeling. I've already had a very long-standing connection as a medium or intuitive, but for most of my life, I've always had kind of like this stream of consciousness that I've been talking to. And it's almost like coming out of the closet a little bit to be like, oh, hey, I'm talking to these voices and this is what I hear. And normally they speak when I'm doing my solo podcast episodes, but it's more in like a flow state and not in like a question answer conversational kind of thing. And so I'm going to start doing more with that. And I'm really excited about it and also terrified at the same time. In addition to that, I started a mystery school, which I was so excited about because I have pulled together a community of people who are interested in the mystic arts and interested in being able to practice more of their gifts, but more so just learn about their own intuition, find community, find other people to talk with and be like, whoa, I had this really weird dream. Do you have dreams like that? And creating kind of like a spiritual Instagram, basically. Like we have our own like social network where we talk to each other every day. And that has been so life-giving to me. It feels like it's my aha moment. Like of this, okay, I get it now. This is how I'm to move through the world a little bit. And like how like when the universe or spirit kind of starts to move you along in different ways and they take you up a step and then you take up a new step and a new step. And I can start to see now the foundation building itself upon itself through these kind of channeled ideas. And so that's been really exciting. And while that's been going on, I've been having these extraordinarily difficult challenges in my home life. And what's really interesting is about the year that I talked to you guys, I was in the middle of this like grand manifestation and I had called in a partner and a baby and a home and all these really amazing progressions in my career. And then I had all this healing that needed to happen behind those things. People always think that when you get your manifestations, then everything's hunky dory and you're great. And it's like, no, it's the leveling up of to the next thing of what you need to heal. And each one of those manifestations tend to bring with it some kind of lesson, some kind of, enlightenment, if you will. And so I'm going through each one of those manifestations and learning what it means to expand. And trying really hard not to put any judgment on that. Becoming a mother has been extraordinary and so hard to have to sacrifice. Like I can't sleep when I fucking want to, like I can't sleep when I want to, like something so basic. And then just seeing, the kind of workaround of how much sacrifice is involved, not just with a child born from me, but also my stepchildren and having to deal with external circumstances and that comes with. And learning how to put other people first above my own needs, above my bath time, above my, things that I want to do in my life. And so that's been extraordinarily challenging and also very, very growth giving. So it has been a whirlwind again of another year. That's kind of just how my life is. Like everything's in a whirlwind, and it's like, it's never really like a slow time any time. But it's almost like, especially during this time, I feel very much so a lot of people are going through a quick catch up, and it's like, hey, let's get you up to speed about where you need to be at and what's happening in this world so you can be prepared and ready for what it is that you need to do next. And everybody's kind of feeling that, I think, that fast forward where we're all just trying to catch our breath.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I think that that's definitely a theme right now. I do want to ask, as a fellow mother, welcome to the club, by the way. I got 3 hours of sleep last night.
Woo.
And my kid's 5. That's that was the troublemaker, was the 5-year-old, because anytime they have a cough, they're in your room. Okay. Coughing every 5 minutes because they don't want to sleep alone. Anyway. So yes, yes. How has motherhood changed or evolved or had an effect on how you work or the kind of work that you do? Because you do obviously your work is very spiritual, very connected, very much not of the earth all the time, and neither are babies, right? So how has that kind of shown up in your life?
It definitely gave me more skin in the game for this birth experience, because I have a lot more fears, a lot more anxiety than I did when I was worrying about just myself. I know that there have been really a lot of moments where I have been, like just pushed to the max, like my kid's 10 months and she's lovely. I love hanging out with her. She's super fun. She's like really got like a little personality now. And that's been really rewarding. But there have been moments where I'm just screaming to myself inside, like, I really chose this over my single life. And I know that that's going to be controversial. People are like, what a terrible mom. And there's oh my gosh, I've learned so much about mom shame. And I'm like, these are real experiences. These are very real feelings. And
can we normalize being a freaking human?
While we're
here?
Please. Like it's super important to the process, because if I don't allow myself to accept how I'm feeling, the host of depression that comes over, like I had really bad postpartum depression that I didn't allow myself to acknowledge because I didn't allow myself to stop.
Right.
And so if that's a way in which it changed me, it's like, okay, I have to really get present with who I am and what I'm feeling, and acceptance for what it is that I'm feeling. Otherwise, I don't survive out of those moments. And so it's been super important for me. I've also learned a lot about boundaries. I learned about like what it means. Like my partner is so supportive of what it is that I do. And so that, to me, that's been paramount. Without a partner who is so supportive of what it is that I'm trying to do, I don't think I'd be able to do at the scale that I could do what I'm doing. Because there was just this moment of when I was about 3 months in, and I was like, I can't, like, I feel like I'm losing myself. I'm losing my identity. And I know a lot of moms go through that a lot. But there's this part of me that was like, no, I cannot lose what it is that I'm doing. I want to raise a child that doesn't have to heal from her childhood 100%, but I also need to remain who I am in order for her to see like this is what, like it means to be a strong mother. This is what it means to be a independent person. This is what it means to have some, be someone who has dreams and so on. It's the reason I do this job, so I can stay at home with my kid. You know what I mean? So there's all these like choices that you make to sacrifice in order to have the family life that you'd like to have. And at the same time, not sacrificing certain things in order to be able to raise them in an environment that they can be inspired by, I hope someday. So I'm super thankful for my partner. Without him making sure, like we both worked part-time for the first 8 months, so that there was never a time where she wasn't with one of us. And now we have an in-home nanny that comes part-time in order to give us extra days to work, but I'm still here. Like I'm still checking on her every hour. I'm still there. So it's just changed the momentum maybe, but even maybe not, because in a lot of ways I've become more inspired by like, okay, well, now I'm not just the soul that thinks that I'm just here to do, whatever for myself. Now I need to make sure that the next generation is taken care of as well. And I know that when I've been channeling, my guides have said she's going to be a really great teacher for me. And I know that children for a lot of people are, but getting into a space of learning from her and like seeing how she's expanding me through this process of caring for her, learning about how much anxiety I have. Like I had no mirror to compare to before.
Girl.
And since she's been born, I'm like, dang, like I really have a problem with anxiety. I really have a problem with control. I really have a problem with intrusive thoughts or fear or, whatever. It really holds a light to a lot of the misgivings and problems that I have that I need to fix. And it puts it on an accelerator. Pretty much so.
Well, and I know that like I wasn't me when I had my first baby. I was nowhere near. I was still in the like get a job, pay your bills, survive, the normal stuff. It wasn't until I had my first child that I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? What will light me up? How can I be here for him? I know so many people that have to drop their kids off at daycare after 6 weeks because they just have no other options. I was like, I cannot. So that's how I kind of grew into myself. And so I always kind of had this idea, not really guilt, but like, or regret, none of that. But it was more like, what if I was me when would things be different? Would I have been able to keep the momentum better? Would I have been able to do? It just cracks you open in ways you never, ever, ever thought you would be. So it does help on one hand to hear that even you get cracked open with motherhood. It's just a thing. It's a thing. Like you can't be too evolved to feel the depth of being a freaking parent and knowing you have to keep this human alive.
It's very grounding. And
nurture it and make sure it's not screwed up somehow, the same ways that you were screwed up. It's all the things. So I would say that, yes, they are definitely the best teachers. And also, I don't know that I want to learn these things, but
I know. I mean, and even for people like, I mean, I was full on single until I was 36 and not knowing if I could have children.
That is a transition, my dear.
Full on single all the way to 36. And then now 3 children, basically. Yeah. Most of the time. And so to have a whole household and, like this is why my mantra has been, this is what we're doing now. This is what we're doing now. Something that I can be very frank about is that my stepchildren's mother has a very tumultuous schedule, we'll say. And so our days very often are, do we have the kids or we don't not have the kids? Do we not, and going back and forth. So I've had to and I noticed I think I'm on the spectrum, which is not to say something negative. I think that everybody's on the spectrum in some regard. I don't do well with unexpected change, and like not even like long-term change. I can kind of deal with that, but in my own household, that is something I have a hard time with, being able to acclimate to the differences of energies, fluctuation of energy in my home, and to not be able to have any control over that is the closest you can get to me to like making me lose my shit. So like knowing that we'll have a very quiet nope, it's going to be loud and it's going to be messy and it's going to be this. Oh, now we have to cook dinner and we have to do this. Like, I love these children, so don't get me wrong, but there's this moment of like, I can't even control my own household. Like that affects me. That really affects me. And it's like, okay, I thought I was going to be working on this. I'm supposed to record an interview. I'm supposed to do this. Oh, nope, I have to cancel with this client now because we need to go pick people up from school. Things like that. And it's been very challenging for me. And in the aspect of like, nothing gets to be the way I want it to be anymore. Like, that little like tantrum you want to throw of like, I don't get to have my way anymore, and I feel like a, stupid ass brat sometimes because I'm pouting like, down to the, like, this is an example. And this is going to sound horrible, but I'm just going to,
we're here for you, girl.
We're gonna keep it real. Okay.
I support you. You go.
Yeah. We appreciate your authenticity. Just keep going.
So it's like, for me, I need baths to be able to center myself. And if I've had a really bad day, to be able to come back to center. And so very often we have a switch of schedules or, whatever. And all day I've been just looking forward to this bath. When I finish with work, I'm sitting in that bathtub for an hour and I'm going to like get myself together during Veda's nap time, whatever. And we have a switch in schedules, and which means that there are, our stepchildren, their bath time at a certain time. So when I finish work, I come out of my dungeon or whatever. And then it's like, oh no, we have to do the kids' bath times, which takes an hour or whatever. And I was like, all I was looking forward to was a bath, like quiet time in a bath to release a lot of my feelings and emotions and stuff. And I can't have that. And in that moment, I threw the worst kind of fit inside of myself. Obviously, nobody got to see that, but I felt so angry because it was like, this is being thrust upon me. And I didn't choose this scenario, if you will, not necessarily the children, but the outside circumstances that caused that for them. And I could hear this voice come in and say, you are here to be a safe space for them. And like, I got checked in that moment because I know that I intend that very much. So I love them for like, we spent the last week rearranging our entire house so we could give them their own bedrooms. And so my office, I'm currently upstairs. We haven't finished the office yet, but whatever, but we had just renovated my office downstairs and decided we're going to give them those 2 rooms and like give them their own space, something that they've never had before, because I love them and I want them to have those things. I want them to have their safe space. I want them to have access to the things they haven't had access to before. I want to make sure that I am a good shining example in the best way that I can be, even if I'm not their mom. But in that moment, I wanted my fucking bath.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel in center, you know what I mean? And so there's this mantra that I've been saying, like, okay, this is what we're doing now. This is the way I need to tune myself to readjust, to change when things don't go your way. And I've seen how the universe is ramping it up, like in very big ways. So we've had to cancel my wedding. My wedding.
Only mine.
And I've done all this planning, people coming from Paris and from, Spain and other places or whatever. And 2 months, out, we have this circumstance I can't mention because it's too private for the world. And, obviously me and David are great, but this other stuff going on that has made it extraordinarily hard. And I am seeing how the universe is going, remember that thing we told you? Neutrality. Remember that thing about this is what we're doing now? Let's take it a step further. Let's see how good you can get at this. And part of me feels I'm still obviously trying to heal from whatever this is going on here, but there's this resentment that comes with the change of plans, that I don't get what I want now. This is not happening on my timeline. This is, the linear aspect of our lives where we look forward to something. I recognize that my postpartum depression, I had put into wedding planning. So I'm having to do that physical, real grieving of time. I didn't allow myself to process what was going through me emotionally through my healing process. I had a really traumatic birth that I can't even talk about without crying.
Didn't you do a podcast episode about that?
I did one privately on Patreon behind the wall. I said, I'll talk about it one time. Yeah. And then that's it.
So go to her Patreon if you want to
go
hear
to
the story.
Patreon.
We're not going to
I wanted to plug it, but
unless she wants to cry.
Yeah.
It was so much. And so I put all of my emotions in this traumatic experience into looking forward to something else.
Yep.
Not dealing with what I was going through there, because instead of being in the mindset of this is what we're doing now, adjust the sails, I wanted to essentially force something new into the reality that I was experiencing and not acknowledging how I was actually feeling in the moment. And so what I mentioned earlier, the motherhood thing has really forced me in this long year process to figure out, okay, here I am, this kind of spiritual being, as we all are. And I'm supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to be this spiritual leader. And I can't figure out how to get my human shit together when everything is crumbling around me and the world is going to shit and before our very eyes. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I adjust my sails to go in the direction in which the wind is blowing? You go to the place of neutrality. Like, this is all perspective. There is no suffering if we don't assign suffering to meaning, like to that particular instance. Obviously, pain is very real, and I'm not going to gaslight anybody out of that. But what I'm saying is that in those moments, the suffering that we cause ourselves, at least, is from us not shifting our perspective, from us not coming to a place of neutrality and saying, you know what, like, this external circumstance feels painful, but I could assign it and say, this is for my expansion. This is helping me grow. This is helping me become more loving. This is helping me become more flexible. This is helping me become better at whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. And if I can let go of what I think should be happening during this particular time and go with where the flow is happening, I can release a lot of that resistance and come into a real final place of surrender. And so while I'm not there yet, I'm watching it happen before my very eyes. Instead of becoming a judger, I'm an observer of what's happening in my own life. And that to me is the true power of coming into that a space of neutrality, is like, can I observe this without judging it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would even, go ahead, Kelsey.
You have good internet right now. You go.
I have good internet. Let me get it out while it can happen. So as a friend, I would say to you that I don't know if this is in your blind spot or if you've been realizing it lately, but it's about the judgment that you're placing on yourself. And you don't need to do that anymore. Because I feel like it's too much pressure to expect yourself to be like, oh, I'm this spiritual teacher, so I should be spiritually perfect. And also like, I should have my shit together in the 3D, even though we're all here trying to figure it out. And also like, if I don't have control of my life, then that means something bad about me.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
You know,
100%.
So I just want to be that little birdie in your ear. And next time you have this reminder, you can think of me like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to release judgment of myself and my life. What if I didn't need to judge myself right now that I'm having a tantrum inside? What if I didn't need to judge myself that a part of me is sad that my singlehood is gone? What if I didn't have to judge myself that all these crazy things are happening to me? You know, because it's easy when you're so spiritually inclined to start to use your spirituality against yourself and be like, oh, how did I manifest these things? I can't believe we're still here. I thought I already healed this. And you go into like these loopholes and it's too much. So as your friend, I just want to help take some pressure off and relieve the judgment.
Thank you. Thank you. I will say, like, I know that when I was single or before I had kids, like it was easier for me to get to that space because I wasn't responsible for anyone. And that to me, that's the hard part. So it is a good reminder because that is the hard part. When you're responsible for people, it's like when you have those failing moments, it affects someone in a big way besides yourself. And so that criticism, that's why they say mom guilt is very real. And I've experienced it to nth degrees, because there's this part of you that's like, I don't want to fuck anybody's life up. It's okay if I fuck my life up, but because I remember one moment, and one of my worst moments of motherhood, I say this in quotes because I had just had a baby. So hormones are going all crazy. I had just had a very traumatic birth where I almost died. And I remembered most of it. I had been in extraordinary pain, sleep deprivation. My child was not processing milk very well, didn't know at the time. So she was extremely constipated. So she's screaming all hours of the night. And it was maybe her second week. And I remember her laying on the bed and me just screaming, what do you want? Like losing
You're making me flashback.
It just like, not like she's screaming at the top of her lungs. And I'm like, what do you want? I don't know. You know, like I literally had a mind break.
This exact moment happened to me. What the heck? I had to he was brand new baby, first baby, had to put him down. I was holding him. Nothing was working. I put him on the floor right in front of me. Mm-hmm. He's just crying. I'm just staring at him. I'm like, what do you want? I don't know what to do. And my husband, luckily within like 30 seconds, he knew the baby was crying. He comes out and he's like, do you want me to take over? And I was like, I got to get out of here. I went into another room. I just couldn't. You just cannot for one more minute. Your
sensory system cannot calculate at a certain point. I mean, it was at 4 a.m. She'd been crying for 2 hours. My scar was bleeding. Like I was in immense pain, like having to carry her. My boobs are leaking, like all kinds of stuff. And you just feel broken.
Yep.
And here I am in this moment and I lost it. And like, obviously I didn't do anything to her.
Right.
She was away from me far enough. I wasn't like in her ears or anything like that, but I'm losing it. And then what happens? The guilt washes over you.
Yep.
Like I'm a terrible mom. I'm horrible at this. I'm never going to be great, blah, 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 the whole thing. And I remember stepping away from that situation, super resentful, like David, my partner, you should be staying up with the baby. There should be in no way me having to stay up with this child after I did all the work. But you know, my boobs are the source of food. So now I'm responsible for that too. So there's just all this like judgment and guilt and resentment. And it is kind of like the extreme example of those things. And I remember stepping away from that maybe a week later, and I was feeling so ashamed of just like how I had reacted, how I had responded. And I thought, no, we're not going down that road. No. Look at all the things that I had to go through, and I survived. And in that moment, I was due for something to happen. So we're not going to do that. So I found myself very often going in and out of those kind of moments. Like you have those little moments of judgment. And I'm doing it right now. Like during this moment of time, I'm having these little tantrums of like, things should be this way. And why aren't things like that? And and trying to be so conscientious that those expressions energetically don't affect the children and make them feel like they're not a part of our home, or that I'm upset that they're here or whatever. That level of conscientiousness, you have to almost kind of divide and be like, I'm here. I love you. And I may not be doing very well. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm also not going to make you feel like, it's your fault. You know what I mean? Like there's such a consciousness there.
And that's what I was going to say before, which was I definitely have those moments where, they're just around all the time. I lock my door because they will come in the middle of a podcast. They will, but in the moments, let's use the bath as an example, right? If they actually use our bathtub to take a bath because it's bigger and the little ones can play and all these things. And I know I have a million examples of my own in my real life, but I could easily be like, well, that's my bath, bro. You're sleeping in my bed. I need my sleep. But at the same time, it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction for me. And this is where my trauma comes in handy, I think, because I look back at like all these moments when I was a kid and I'm like, look what I'm able to provide. I'm almost rewriting my nonsense with a little moment of happiness or contentment or fulfillment, right? That I'm able to give them. And I know, because I do this, I look back at my childhood all the time. I know if they look back at this moment, they're going to feel good and they're going to feel like they were taken care of. And so maybe that's something you can do, because that's definitely what's helped me go from like, me taking my stuff, bro, to, oh my God, look how nurtured you feel. And look how you're going to remember this moment. I want to be that memory of their happiness. And I won't always be, but if I can help it, I will be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that energy is so important. And can I be real?
Yeah.
I think energy is so important, and I know it is. And I know that your mood has an energetic wave to it. And when you enter a room, your energy comes with you, and children are geniuses at picking this up.
Yeah.
And I don't always do it. My husband doesn't always do it, but as much as I possibly can, I want to bring in that energy. And so for me, that helps me. And I'm trying to help my husband do it, because he does, but he doesn't go there first. And I feel like I've gotten to the point where I go there first. I'm like, what's your energy? Bring that good energy, because the kids know, if you could put on a smile, but if you're in a shitty mood, they'll feel that. And so that's been something that we've been really trying to work on, is just, shifting in that way. But if you can be that source of happiness or nurturing or comforting for them. I read this quote. It said, your kids don't need perfect, they just need you. And I was like, oh, that's nice. It's a nice little reminder. In a way, I'm going to be perfect.
I like that quote. So I'm obviously not a mother yet, but I've thought about this a lot because I anticipate the anxiety. I'm already very anxious on my like lonesome journey of singlehood up until this point. It's been anxious. I'm like, oh God, when I'm a mom, I'm gonna be a mess, right? And the pressure that you're describing, it makes sense, right? Like there was pressure before to be perfect or be the best or whatever, and now it's like multiplied by a million when you have these people depending on you, and you want to make sure that no matter what, like you don't fuck them up, like especially when you're in the healing industry, you're like, I don't want them to end up like as one of my clients or in therapy. But I feel like here's what I've done when I future pace about this and I start to worry about that. I just think like, well, I was in therapy and I'm fine. Like if they have to go to therapy, they're gonna be okay, they'll be stronger for it, they'll get through it. It's almost like when you try to offer someone a discount because you aren't because you're trying to be compassionate, but kind of what you're doing energetically is saying like, I don't believe in your abundance. It's kind of like doing that to your kids sometimes when you try so hard to make sure that nothing bad happens to them. It's like almost, I'm not saying that you do this consciously, but it's almost like as if you're saying you don't believe in their resilience or their growth or their capacity to handle like what they signed up for. So I think knowing that they're going to get through it just fine, just how you got through it just fine. And they're going to grow from that and heal from that, and taking some of the responsibility off of you to do it just right, to do it perfect every single time. And just know like, I'm doing my best and I'm being authentic and I'm doing what's best for me too, because they're going to use that and model that. I think that is what helps my future self when I relate to my momness of like, oh man, that's going to be so much pressure. Try not to F them up. But like, we all get effed up. Sometimes you got to go to therapy. It's
We're a
okay.
spectrum of fuckery, really.
Exactly. There's a spectrum. Probably your kids are going to be very low on the spectrum because you're a very conscious person and you're parenting in a very mindful way. So that's the best, you know,
it's
that's
very
best
true.
case scenario right there.
And it is a double-edged sword. I saw this Red Table Talk. Hey, Will Smith and Kevin Hart. They did an episode together where they both were like, I had so much trauma as a kid that I feel like I might have overshot it and tried to, you know, bubble wrap my kids a little bit too much. And now I'm at the point where they feel like they can just get anything, or like they feel like they not get everything handed to them, but they don't know what it looks like to get punched. You know, they don't know. That's what Kevin Hart used that example. He doesn't know what it feels like to be punched in the face. Weird example, but okay.
I love Kevin Hart.
But I know, I love him. But I totally understand that. It's such a fine line that you have to like walk, but it's not super difficult. I think Kelsey's right. You know, if you just keep in the mindset of like,
keep them alive.
I'm doing my best.
That's number one. Keep them alive.
Keep them alive. Keep them fed. You know, keep them
happy.
happy.
Get a little messed up in
I'll
the
tell you
brain.
this.
They'll make it. They'll make it.
For people who have stepchildren, there's definitely a different dynamic because you're not their parent.
Yes.
And, so
and you have another person that you have to bounce off of and co-parent with, and it can
so there are things I can't say. There are things I can't do. And there are ways in which I have to behave extra sugary to offset what's happening on the other end. And so I'm not as concerned. I guess I'm not as concerned with my own daughter about messing her up because I have, and not because I care about her less, obviously, but like I know her.
You
like,
know her.
She was.
You can take more liberties with her.
Right.
She's
like,
yours.
There's this direct like connection here. Like it's very different. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself at the beginning to make it like they were my children. And it's like energetically, like that just doesn't happen. Some people may have that connection. They're smaller right now, so maybe when they're older a bit, but I was the pressure I was putting on myself to try to show up like their mother. And it's like, I don't have to do that. I need to show up as an adult who can care for them. And so at some point we'll come to that place, and I do love them very much, like very much so. And I, you know, I hope when they're older, they'll hear this and know that I'm working actively to make sure that I'm a really good example in their life. What they are teaching me, and it's not even them, it's by proxy, right? It's by what's happening outside of them that's going on. It's teaching me about flexibility, about how to love through the pain, how to be acceptance of changes. Like me and my partner, you know, like let's take it off the kids. Let's talk about relationship with our partner. That kind of support, how to lean on each other properly in certain circumstances, when external stuff is going on, when to push through and when to wane, like when to say, you know what, actually, this is a boundary for me, or, you know what I mean? Like learning those things about each other has been really, expansive for our relationship. And in times it's made it really hard. You know, we don't have really any fights except around one particular topic that has to do with nothing about us. And so that challenge to me shows me the longevity of the relationship, but something that I'm working on personally. And what I keep coming back to is that neutrality. Like if I wasn't in a place where I felt super indignant about someone's behavior, you know, I wouldn't suffer.
Is she British? Your indignance is British. I love it.
I wouldn't have the same level of anger, of upsettedness, of unfairness, of, you know, whatever. There's this Reddit thread that I found about step parents and the frustration that they experience because of always having to deal with someone that's outside of your own home. And, I don't even deal with my family like that, to have to like have interaction with someone constantly that you're not dating or you're not married to, and to try to find the balance between that. And something that was really interesting that I found a lot of peace in, and I can't even remember who was telling me this, but it was probably my dad, which is shocking that this would come from my father. But he said something to the effect of like, if someone was treating you this way, you have to know that they've probably gone through, like, he didn't say it this way, but some pretty fucked up stuff.
Yeah.
And they're going through a lot of pain, hurt people, that kind of explanation. And for my own response is like, if someone is doing to these kids, blah, 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 they should, pay the ultimate price. But knowing what I know without saying so many things, I know that this person has dealt with an insurmountable amount of pain, and to try to extend the level of grace. Like I'm not, I don't have to be anybody's angel. Let's just put that there first. I don't have to extend that kind of grace to anyone, but there is this inside of me, this little glimmer, the crack opening that children do to you. This little part of me that goes, you should extend grace here. Like, this is unfair. This person is acting out in ways that is hurting you and your family, but you should extend grace here because this person has gone through so many things that I would never wish upon myself or my children or them as well. And in that, I get to learn how to have a bigger heart. Yep. I get to learn how to have more grace for those circumstances. I get to be like, I watched David go through so much of that stuff with his own family, like even his own family, his blood family. And I go, how do you deal with these people? Because I'm so justice oriented that like, I don't have that. I have like, someone should know. And this is what should, like I'm the person, they always say that the best couples are, there's one person who complains to the waiter and the other person that doesn't say anything. Like that is every dynamic. And I'm the person that would complain to the waiter and say, this is what needs to be done. Not that person. So I find very much so that in those circumstances, he goes, hey, we don't have to say anything. Like saying something doesn't actually do anything or change the circumstance. And I'm like, the fuck it doesn't. Like, so I'm learning more from him how to be. And even though it can be frustrating and it's not the most pleasant experience at times, it is helping me understand, how to neutralize my energy in those circumstances that can be so difficult in order to, like you mentioned earlier about energy. And it was like, if I wasn't holding all this resentment, like this resentment of these feelings of like, what should be fair?
French?
What
now you're
happening? French. Resentment actually is a term in philosophy where they talk about it is resentment essentially, but they term it as a noun essentially.
They lost it on that one.
Just your storytelling gives me the giggles, not the circumstance. I just think you're a great storyteller.
Thank you.
Hey there, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but if you want to listen to the whole thing, we're going to invite you over to our podcast. Either search for Vibin It on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, or even better, if you want to watch the extended video version of this episode that's even longer than the actual podcast itself, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/highvibe. Lindsay, tell them what's awesome about the Patreon.
Patreon is where we have all of our extended episodes. As Kelsey said, we have it on video, so you can actually see the things that we're talking about. Sometimes we have visual aids, and it's nice to know what we're talking about. We also have hangouts that we do sometimes that are exclusive to Patreon people. And you can get started with all of this and bonus content and everything that we have only for the Patreon people for as little as $3. I think it's $3.33 a month. And that's it. And you guys can get all the benefits and all access to everything that we put in there. Really cool.
It's really cool, really fun, super easy to join. And you guys don't even have to do that to finish this episode. If you're like, screw it, I don't want to pay any money, I just want to hear the rest of this episode, go to our podcast, Vibin It, search for it wherever you listen. It's totally free. Either way, enjoy the rest of the show wherever you choose to enjoy it. And we will see you guys next week because we do a new one every week. Adios.
Bye.